Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so today we are wrestling with this stack of source material that's, well, it's intensely fragmented, it's often poetic, and frankly kind of alarming sometimes. It feels less like a tech report and more like a manifesto about modern systems hitting a breaking point. Yeah, we're diving into what really feels like a diagnosis of the digital soul, you know? It blends everything from binary panic and protocol unsupported, that very specific tech rage, with this really deep social, even spiritual commentary about control and engineered obsolescence. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We need to synthesize this stuff. We need to pull out the core insights into this digital existential crisis they're diagnosing, and we'll focus on the three big failures they keep coming back to: language, technology, and social systems.
That's absolutely critical because these sources, they don't just analyze bugs, you know.
Yeah.
They're really asking who gets to write the rules in the first place. When systems fail, especially systems of meaning, you're immediately pushed into this fundamental crisis about authority. Who's in charge? We're always looking for the arbitrator in all this chaos, that ultimate authority that decides what's real, what's correct, what's even supported.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's jump right into maybe the deepest, most abstract failure here, the failure of language itself.
Yeah, what's fascinating is how they describe it. The sources claim the glitch isn't some small thing like a typo or a forgotten semicolon. It's described in these really profound terms. The original text calls it uma falha no sistema de linguagem. Let me see. Erro de pronto, uma falha no processo de definição, or embroglio lógico. You hear that? A language system failure, prompt error, a failure in the definition process, or just a logical snarl up.
Wow, that sounds almost like a spiritual breakdown for the machine itself. If the way we tell the system what to do, if that's faulty, then the whole communication structure just falls apart, doesn't it?
Precisely. And that immediately pushes us to the philosophical core of this material. The sources, they keep asking this essential question: Cheme arbitro? Who is the arbitrator? And quale o parametro? What's the parameter? It's the standard. If the very language we use to define reality and command these systems is broken, then, well, the authority that determines truth or correctness, it just vanishes. We're left in this kind of semantic vacuum.
A semantic vacuum. And that vacuum is being filled, enthusiastically it seems, by generative AI, which the sources specifically flag as a danger. They warn that AI will alter another generation, creating generative creation from the heart and soul of the symbols. But hang on, what's the danger if it's coming from the heart and soul?
That's the catch. The danger is that the outcome is significance signifiers without meaning. Think of it this way. AI is incredibly fluent, right? It speaks confidently, perfect syntax, dazzling rhetoric sometimes. But the meaning behind the words, it can be hollow. It's often derived from statistical probability, not, genuine understanding or concept.
So fluent nonsense.
Exactly, fluent nonsense. It looks good, sounds right, but maybe there's nothing truly underneath. We get surrounded by this beautiful, confident noise that actually erodes our ability to tell what's real.
Okay, so if our language is breaking down like this, the sources suggest we need to fight back cognitively. They say when language mingles, sound decomposes singing, they call for the semiotic brain structure to awake. That's a heavy phrase. What does that actually mean for us?
Yeah, it is heavy. It basically means our most fundamental mechanism for making sense of signs, symbols, meaning it needs a jolt. Semiotics, it's the study of signs, how we interpret a word, an image, a sound, anything really. If we just start relying on AI to generate everything for us, we risk losing that basic ability to interpret reality ourselves. So the solution isn't just updating the software out there, it's maybe updating our own human ability to process signs and meaning before this generative flood just drowns us all.
That fear of drowning in technical chaos, that brings us right to the systems themselves. The dazed machine source connects this language failure directly to tech confusion. They claim generative language, those expanded hashtags, complex computing processes, serial parallel clusters, all of it actively works to confuse the machines.
It's like the ultimate feedback loop of failure, isn't it? You get the theoretical failure, no arbitrator, mixed with the practical failure. And the result is the glitch, the ghost, and that message we all hate, protocol unsupported. The systems are just so complex, so layered with competing inputs, they literally stop knowing how to talk to each other, or maybe even to themselves.
Right. And that inherent confusion, that collapse, it transitions us perfectly into the physical world, the concrete world of hardware failure, and, well, maybe the most cynical design choice, planned obsolescence. The sources are pretty clear this isn't accidental breakage. They frame it almost as economic violence.
Oh, absolutely. It's captured brilliantly in this idea of binary panic. This panic happens where all the beats in the O1, the digital pulse, is programmed to stop, all part of the plot. That's the key bit, part of the plot. It implies these systems are designed with a kill switch. They have an expiration date coded right into their digital DNA, and the lament is just palpable. The system doesn't run, no connection to the one. The corporation makes sure the machine's life force is, well, intentionally shut down.
It's the death of our silicon ancestors. I love that phrase. We all have one, right? That old laptop or phone in a drawer somewhere. The source notes, old machines don't run software, the screen might still shine, the hardware itself could be perfect, but it's functionally useless. It's just nusicat, which you mentioned is Portuguese for scrap. You basically own this perfectly operational piece of art that's been deliberately made incompatible.
And this engineered cycle, this deliberate incompatibility, feeds directly into the source's most biting critique. And it's aimed not just at the corporations, but at us, the users.
Yeah.
In the section called idiots, the consumer's really harshly called out. Branded an idiot if they just buy a line.
Whoa, that's strong language. Is that just, revolutionary anger, or do they actually justify calling the consumer an idiot?
Well, they justify it by contrasting consumption with agency. The core problem, according to this material, is that corporations are deliberately shipping new things every year, designed to become obsolete. They manipulate the consumer easily with the new shiny thing. You're basically put on this treadmill of upgrades. Your job is just to buy, discard, and buy again.
You're not meant to understand it or maintain it.
Exactly. You're discouraged from it. Think about the difference between being, say, a car mechanic versus just being a repeat car buyer.
Yeah.
The source argues we are actively steered away from technical literacy.
So what's the alternative then?
Well, the source gives the counter-argument directly. We just need to research more. We just need a way to update drivers, operational systems, compatibilities, backend.
Yeah.
It's this technical labor, this deep dive into making old things work, that's presented as the key to breaking the cycle. If you don't do that, the implication is you're kind of participating in your own obsolescence.
Right, that's the crucial choice they put in front of you. Can you hack it or just buy online? And then the punchline, if you just buy a line, you are only needed. Meaning if you submit to the consumer cycle, your only role is as a transaction, a body waiting for the next product drop.
Whereas the alternative is technical empowerment. It almost revolts through knowledge. And that shifts the whole discussion, doesn't it? From just a technical error to a moral choice you have to make.
Yeah, it does. And once we see this trap as, well, morally and technically designed, we have to widen the lens again, look at the social commentary, especially from that text, De Viva Poetica de Tata. The source argues this algorithmic trap isn't even new, it's just the latest version of really old, powerful control structures.
The metaphors they use are designed to shock you into recognizing that link. The modern system of control, this digital panopticon, it's compared to feiticaria escrava, enslaved sorcery, and escravos obedeciendo peons aure pagão, slaves obeying pawns to the pagan king. The source is basically saying the corporate digital setup isn't revolutionary at all. It's just the newest iteration of age-old oppression, swapping code for chains, maybe.
And they lay out the modern hierarchy so starkly. You see the Deus da Guerra Impera as gentrificações, the god of war running gentrification, and then this specific figure, the Veo Deus Burgues, the old bourgeois god. But this god isn't chaotic. It's described as the ultimate calm, rational force. Deus dinheiro, calmo, incontável e exato. God money, calm, uncountable, and exact.
That phrase is brilliant, isn't it? Money is calm because it's absolute, maybe. Uncountable, meaning beyond the grasp of the average person, yet it's exact. It calculates everything, including, and this is chilling, how many migallas para multidão crumbs for the multitude the masses get.
And we see that in the digital economy constantly. Centralized platforms taking their exact high percentages, while the actual creators get, well, crumbs.
Yeah, the old bourgeois god is just operating on subscription models now and using algorithmically enforced scarcity. Same game, different tools.
So if the system is so meticulously programmed for this kind of oppression, how do the sources suggest we resist? They bring up this really interesting idea of the silent protest.
This silence is complex, layered. It's described as not knowing where to stay. It even seems like a shame of saying nothing. But the text insists it is the speech. It's the refusal to engage on the system's terms. If the language system itself is broken, as they argued earlier, then refusing to speak in that broken language, that act of intentional, non-compliant silence, maybe that becomes the only true way to dissent.
It feels like it taps into some deep, maybe submerged history of resistance. They know it's as old as time, for it has faded away, and you can almost feel the emotional pressure cooker leading to this silence, that raw feeling of being actively unwanted, the system basically saying, you are hated, don't want you anymore.
Exactly.
So it's not just quiet resignation. This silent protest, especially when mentioned alongside Macumba or revolt, it suggests there's a really potent, maybe revolutionary energy brewing just beneath that quiet surface failure.
I think it has to be. And all this intense systemic failure, this relentless pressure, it inevitably takes a personal toll. The sources definitely don't ignore the final cost on you, the listener, the mental overload, the sheer lack of rest.
Yeah, the immediate physical hit is captured in never sleep. The sources just state it flatly, too much screen time and nothing works. We're not resting. We're in this constant state of frantic digital maintenance, scrolling for answers, eyes crawling. I've been scrolling for hours, I can find the answer, and the inevitable end state is just never sleep.
And we really need to grasp why we never sleep, according to these texts. It's not presented as just a personal failing, like poor time management. It's framed as a systemic drain tied directly back to the latency agency of corporations.
Latency agency? What does that mean exactly?
In this context, I think it refers to the time lag, the deliberate foot dragging, the slow pace at which corporations release support or tools, especially for older tech. That delay, that latency, becomes a form of agency, a way they exert control.
Okay, so we're scrolling frantically because the system itself forces us into this endless loop of self-maintenance for programs that are basically obsolete by design. The rage comes from feeling outdated because of corporate decisions, even when your hardware is perfectly fine. The internet refuses that, so confuses you because programs have solved.
Programs are obsolete.
Right, but the machine still exists. It's maddening.
It is. And that immense overload of sense, the visual strain, the mental strain, it demands some kind of dramatic, almost violent release. This is where the source brings in the idea of the colors tarantella. When the systems fail, when the eyes are crawling from scrolling, it's like colors bleeding through the eyes, sensory overload at its extreme.
The tarantella reference, that's a really powerful analogy here. For anyone not familiar, it's that Italian folk dance. Historically, people believed it was the only cure for a tarantula bite, for its venom. The victim had to dance like mad to the point of exhaustion, literally to sweat out the poison.
Precisely. So the digital venom, the confusion, the obsolescence, the systemic rage, it has to be extracted through dance. It's described as needing a collective embrace to save or die. This process, this fighter's death and transformation, leads to this state of near-death elation and almost reincarnation. It strongly suggests the only way to break free from the system's toxic constraints is to willingly go through some kind of necessary, maybe dangerous psychological transformation, a purge. Okay,
so let's try to synthesize all this intense material. We tracked failure on what? 3 key fronts. There's the abstract failure, language, meaning the missing arbitrator. Then the concrete failure, hardware, the programmed obsolescence, the kill switch. And finally, the failure of the social contract. The calm, exact thought of money dealing out crumbs.
Yeah, and the unifying theme running through all of it seems to be this imposed cycle, a cycle of panic, consumption, and obsolescence. It's fundamentally designed to steal your time and your agency.
So the big challenge, the philosophical and practical challenge these sources throw down, it really comes back to that choice they present to you, the listener.
Exactly. You face this decision point. Are you going to be the idiot just waiting in line for the new shiny thing that you know is already programmed to stop working? Or will you assert your agency? Will you choose to hack it, to research, update drivers, demand that your perfectly capable, maybe deprecated system actually function?
It suggests the frustration, the rage, even that silent protest. It has to be channeled, transformed into intellectual action, into making things work.
Make it work. Make it work. Hack it again. That's the command from the sources.
So if the system really is programmed to stop as all part of the plot, then maybe our ultimate act of defiance is just breaking that plot. But how loud does that protest need to be? Is it that full-on tarantella transformation of digital rage? Is that the only answer?
Or perhaps the answer is simpler. Maybe it's hidden in that almost throwaway line you find in the material. Computadores fazem arte. Computers make art. What if the machine itself, even when it's deprecated, abandoned by its corporate creators? What if it still holds the potential for creative output, for self-definition completely independent of that plot of obsolescence? Maybe that realization that the machine can create art despite the kill switch. Maybe that's the ultimate challenge to the programmer, to the arbitrator.
That's actually a beautiful thought. The machine making art against the plot, that's definitely something to keep mulling over.